Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boomer Baseball, where we have another hot offering from the history of Major League Baseball. If you're a fan of the game, this is must-see TV. This is what they call Big Baseball by TOPPS, circa 89 or some crap. It's pretty much 1988 when it was made. I think it's 89 though. So this is like some next level stuff. It was made in the height of the junk wax era, so you know it's good. And there's always knife play involved. All right, here we go. Bubble wrap be damned. We're going in hot. Not so hot. I gotta weaken it up a little bit. There we go. Carpal tunnel. You get older. Look at grip strength. Not one of my weaknesses. However, when you get older, you know what happens? You lose grip strength. So sometimes bubble wrap defeats you. So, the more you know. Maybe it's a little too much information. But anyway, we've already done Series 1. We've done Series 3 with my man Mark McGuire. And now we have Series 2. It's like Garbage Pail Kids. Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, the whole shebang. And that's George Brett right there. George Brett. All right, let's get into it. Oh, wow. Look at this. There's 4 packs. 4 beautiful Americana packs on a piece of cardboard. That's wild. All right. I see what you're doing there. TOPPS Baseball. Holy dry rot cellophane, Batman. Golly. All right, let's see what we got here. I got my lights. Oh, hold up. There we go. Let's bring a little light to the subject here. Jim, Don't Call Me Elvis Presley. Harold Reynolds. Don Baylor. Nick Asaski. Bob Kipper. Not to be confused with Bob Nipner. Hojo. There's Hojo. Saberhagen. That's the first card. And look at Propaganda. If you guys haven't checked out The Past is Alive, check out The Past is Alive for all your propaganda needs. Eat. All right. All right, let's see what's next. All right, now I have the whole collection. Everybody on my block is envious of my TOPPS big, collection. Mel Hall looks like he's getting lectured by the second or first base. That's going to be a second or third baseman. Sweet Lou Whitaker, Mike Scott. Every time I see Mike Scott, I just think of the dude from Back to the Future. Great Scott, right? Is there something wrong with your gravity? Anyway, Kirk McCaskill. Jack Morris, there we go. Randy Reddy. Dave Concepcion. You got to read his name. Look at that packaging, though. You got to read Dave Concepcion's name like you're an LA weatherman. Dave Concepcion. If you know, you know. If you live in New Mexico or Arizona, I've seen your news too. It's the same thing. Propaganda piece. Official TOPPS sports card collector sheets. Holy sheet. All right, whatever. Rick the Rat Roden. Nice. Jim Sundberg. Not to be confused with Ryan Sandberg. Whatever. Tom Browning. Floyd Bannister. Greg Swindell. Seitzer. Yikes. He looks like the chick from Twilight. Am I right? Look at his face. He's got like a little caca face going. He's like definitely team, what's the werewolf guy? I have no idea. That's Devo. Get straight. Yeah, go forward. Move ahead. Devo. Whatevers. It's not easy being cheesy, man. Enjoying baseball cards is its own reward, so honestly, I'm just enjoying the process. Hold on. Let's look at that. Let's make sure it's not unique. Oh my God. Get out of town. Look at this hat. Holy whoa. What in the hell? You see this? It's a Velcro hat. Furry baseball that it adheres to the blue panels. Oh my god. I want some x-ray specs. What's next? I don't know. Jeff Robinson. Robin. Not Yount Deer. Vaughn Hayes. Fred Lynn. Golly. Look at that pose. Fred Lynn's like, you know, he whiffed by a quarter mile. Jim Pankovitz. Bob Brantley. And then there we go. The first real, well, Jack Morris is no joke. Whitaker's no joke. Saberhagen's pretty darn cool, but look at that. Look at that green. Look at that ivy right there from Wrigley. Ain't that nice? I mean, that's when, I don't know about y'all if you know anything about that, but that ivy was growing into all that brickwork out there. It cost them like, you know, millions of dollars to fix that. So you got to enjoy that kind of foliage when you can. It's not cheap. Having good ivy in Chicago ain't cheap. There we go. More sheets. Brett Butler. Had a great career. This dude was like automatic, bro. Mike Aldretti. Bob Deere again. Vaughn Hayes again. Greg Walker. Mike Marshall. And another Bob Brantley. Is that two in a row? Two in the same pack? I don't know. A lot of Bob Brantleys. That's the thing with this product. You are going to get 2 to 3 sets almost per box. So that's pretty good. Man, look at this. It's the official high quality cotton sweater of TOPPS. Could you imagine wearing that? Wow. You would be so, your underwear would be pulled up so high, it would be over your head like a COVID mask. I can't say that. Pandemic mask. I'm going to get canceled. Anyway. Tap Paddler. For all of you Past the Live fans. Tony Gwynn. Look at how svelte Tony Gwynn is. Look at that. Oh boy, he's like a beanpole. Jack Howell. Chris Brown. Not that Chris Brown. Sweet Lou Whitaker again. I only need one Sweet Lou Whitaker, though, for my collection. John Pankovitz and another Kirk McCaskill. So if you're new to this channel, I'm just opening old stuff because I like it. I grew up with all this stuff. And at a certain point, oh, man. It's an Andy Warhol TOPPS t-shirt. It's a pretty rad design. If you like not having friends. So I'm putting together this set, this collection, which is basically my old loose collection in binders and such. Vaughn Hayes, Fred Lynn, Pankovitz, Brantley, we've seen them all. Dawson again, thank you. Brian Fisher and Oral Hershiser, everyone's favorite Quaker. I don't know if he's Quaker. Is he Quaker? His name just reminded me of people who like make fireplaces and ride buggies and live in Pennsylvania. I don't know if that's, you know, stereotyping a guy, but, you know. Mark Langston, Great Scott, Julio Franco, I'll take one of them. Whoop. Julio Franco had some good years. Aldretti, Tom Candiotti, and Kevin McReynolds. Very nice. Yeah, so I'm basically recreating my old binder collection, but it's like on steroids. I have tons of graded cards. I've collected some really nice stuff, and I realized I like to put my hands on stuff. I like to open packs. I like to goof around. I like to collect. So what I started doing was revisiting some of these old packs like everybody else. This old junk wax. Stuff I had, stuff I didn't have. You know, if I open one of the boxes or a factory set, I can check it off the list, you know. So that's pretty fun. Lariano, Roden, Tim, Crack Rock, Reigns. Everybody says that. I don't even know. Did this dude do illicit drugs? Probably. If he didn't, whatever. Kurt Stillwell. Okay. I mean, Tim Raines, I mean, he was a perennial all-star back then, right? He was kind of like Vince Coleman, somewhere between Vince Coleman and like Henderson, like not Dave Henderson, but like Ricky Henderson, right? Dave Henderson, like a cool dude. You ever seen Dave Henderson? Got a very like gap tooth smile. I don't know if y'all know that. Seems like a nice guy. Don't know if he's around. I was gonna Google it and see if he has a good rep. He seems like a really sweet guy. Mike Pagalaruio. I've heard his name 1,000 times. Good luck. I'm not doing it tonight. I'm off work and I've had a shot and I'm not doing it. Whoa, look at a hot pack. Golly, look at that. Ricky Henderson. So nice. Look at that. George Brett. I've been trying to pick up a George Brett rookie. I want like a PSA 7. I'll take an 8 OC. I would prefer like a 9 OC. I'm one of those guys who thinks that an off-center card is okay. Because you know what? These are kid stuff. Do you think the guys that were printing cards back in the 60s and 50s, they cared about centering? They're like, you know, taking like 24 by 36 sheets of printed like cardboard and they're cutting it for kids because they're trying to sell bubble gum. You know, like the cards were there to sell the bubble gum. And people start to get that twisted and they think that, like, you know, the cards were the point. The cards were not the point. They were like a byproduct of selling gum. But the point being is that, you know, of course they didn't cut the cards right. They didn't, the quality control, what's that? These are things that kids throw away. I mean, you know, it's supposed to biodegrade. They don't even know what biodegrade is, but they knew it was possible. It's like a banana peel. They knew that if you threw it on the ground, eventually it turns into like detritus, you know? But anyway, I like the off-center stuff. I don't mind it. To me, it's just, you know, it's a part of the process. When you make a product, it doesn't have to be perfect. And, you know, honestly, as a kid, some of the best cards I had, some of the earliest Hank Aaron's I had, some of the Carl Yastrzemski's I had, you know, Lou Brock's, you know, some of the cards I could afford. I never had a Mickey Mantle. I never had like a, I didn't have Koufax. I had Drysdale. I never had Campanella, you know, but I had like other guys. I had Bob Feller, you know. And if the card was, if the card existed and I owned it, I was okay with that. That was good enough for me and most kids back in the 80s and 90s. The fact they existed was good enough. Nowadays, man, it's a buyer's market. I love it. You see all these cards and they're super nice, but they're just off centers. Oh, geez, same correlation. Look, Henderson and Brett again. That's nice. But nowadays, people see like an off-center card and they freak out because it's not. It's good. Wow, what a hot pack! Henderson, Brett, and Gwynn, one pack. People see an off-center old card from the 60s or 50s and they're offended that it's not dead center. It's like, if you like baseball, that's a rad card because it's mint condition. Corners are at perfect 90-degree angles. They're totally sharp. There's no surface conditions. There's no gum stains. You know what I mean? It's just off center, and people freak out. Oh, it's off center. I you know, and it's cool, man. If you got money, buy everything you want. Get it how you want it. But for most collectors, man, the fact that it exists in that condition, whether it's off center or not, is good enough. And these cards, to me, is back when collecting cards and enjoying the sport, enjoying the hobby was at its purest, where you bought the cards for your heroes and for the guys you liked. You didn't buy it because it was worth money. And, you know, the only differentiation was, oh my God, look at that, another Henderson and Brett. If you want a Henderson or Brett, let me know. Put it in the comments. I don't think I've got a single comment on any of my videos. I mean, nobody's told me I'm annoying or nobody's told me I'm a, you know, whatever. But you want a free George Brett and a Henderson and a Gwynn? Let me know. I'll send you one. I just got to get rid of them. I only need one for my collection. So I'll take the most centered one and y'all can have the difference. Another Jack Morris. There we go. Now you get a Gwynn, a Henderson, a Brett, and a Jack Morris. Send a self-addressed stamped envelope. No, I'll pay shipping. It's cool. There we go. Another Jack Morris. Holy cow. Golly. Yeah, the redundancy is real on this product, but the point is, you know, back in the day, you bought the cards because you liked the sport, you like cards, you like collecting, and you got the guys you liked, the teams you rooted for, It wasn't about pulling the one of ones and stuff. Nowadays, you watch people break boxes and it's like, oh, look, you got a Hall of Famer. Oh, look, you got a guy who's like the best in the league. But it's not his rookie card. It's not his one of one. It's not a superfractor. It's not an on-card auto. Yada, yada, yada. It's trash. And the people, they throw it aside like, oh, look, it's garbage. It's like, pretty sad. Kelly Gruber? Isn't that Uncle Joey from Full House? Hashtag Past is Alive. If you guys haven't seen it, check out The Past is Alive. One of my favorite channels. Dude's rad. Golly. Look at this souffle mullet on Rick Sutcliffe. Give me some of that. Franklin Stubbs. Pasqua. Ooh, baby. Everyone's... Look at how lean and mean Barry Bonds was. Look at this. Look at Beanpole. Look at this guy. He had to build like Clemente. Look at him. He's lean and mean, and it turned into a palooka. I'll take Drabeck. And there it is. Roger Clemens. Pretty rad. Pretty rad. I'm really excited when I open this stuff. This ain't fake. I really enjoy this stuff. And I see other content creators, and they open junk wax era stuff. And they're down on the players. They're making fun of what they look like. You know, they're not a Hall of Famer, so they suck. You know, their careers didn't go the way they're supposed to, so they suck. And I get that. It's funny. You know, it's kind of trolly. But you know what, dude? Like, I never played in the show. And if I did, and I played for 4 or 5 years or a decade, you know, maybe take a look into it. You know, that's what I'm doing with my PC. You don't have to do anything. You do whatever you want. But in my PC, I look at these guys, and I look at the rookies who suck. You know, you get those rookie cards, the Future Watch. You get those, you know, All-Star Rookie Cups. You get all that stuff. And you look at the guys, and you know, Wikipedia it. You know, some of these guys played, you know, a few games in the big leagues. Some of them never made it past the minors. Some of them played for, you know, 6-7 years. Some played for over a decade. And it's like, you know what? Like, not everybody is Mickey Mantle, and that's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect, you know. You don't have to be Hank Aaron or Willie Mays. You don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be a legend. You can just be a guy who played a lot of ball, you know. And that's okay, too. These guys are the role players that made the game what it was during those eras, you know. So, you know, some of these guys got over 1,000 hits, you know. They played for a decade. You know, their batting averages were up in the higher 200s, you know. They were like all-stars once or twice or not at all. And that's okay. And to me, I find that interesting because it's the fabric of the game. It's the fabric. It's what makes, you know, Canseco's and McGuire's who they are, and Bonds's, you know, and Griffey's. It's what makes them who they were. They played against these other guys, these role players, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'm enjoying the nuance of the game, as they say. I'm trying not, like, if you ever like study history, you know, if you study like the Roman Empire, things like that, or even like, you know, ancient Greece. I'm a history buff. So if you study that stuff, a lot of times back in the old days, they just taught, you know, the emperors, you know, so everything from Augustus, who was Julius Caesar's, you know, adopted heir, his history lesson all the way through, like, you know, the late empire where you had the Severan dynasty. You know, that was how they taught history back in the day, was by the emperors. They didn't talk about the little people or the common people. They taught history by the dictator. So it's like, imagine learning about, you know, the history of a country through its dictators. That's kind of a biased look at like a country's history. So anyway, point being is that I'm trying to have a little bit more of a golly. Well, now I have to throw Bonds in there and Clemens. I'm trying to look at it from a more objective view, and you know, look at these rookies. Look at, you know, like each year that I'm collecting, trying to look at the rookies of the year. Who is the batting leaders? You know what I mean? Like who is the AL NL batting leaders? Who is the AL NL rookie of the year? And you know what? It might have been their one good year. And I think most people, when they look at their lives, they probably have, when it comes to whatever they do for a living, You know, some people have a nice long run, but most people ain't. You know, we're not Cal Ripken. You know, people don't have like an Iron Man run where they're just. See, this is why you put gloves on. Look, I just wiped my face. And then itch. Look at the freaking grease, bro. It's rough. You know, most people aren't, you know, Iron Man material. We don't all have like Cal Ripken, you know, durability and longevity. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes we have moments of brilliance, and then, you know, our bodies, our DNA, our programming, our, you know, lifestyles fail us, you know, and that's okay. Because in that time and place, you know what? You were a top tier dude. You did what you did at a level that was better than most, and that's okay too, you know. Again, it's just how I like to look. It's nice to look at the history of the game and see those unsung heroes, and to see those, you know, those rookies of the year and those who could have beens, and kind of see their story in the full round and see actually how their lives turned out. To me, that's interesting. So, but that's how I'm collecting. So I'm collecting all the goodies I've had and all the goodies I didn't have, and I'm enjoying it. So, I mean, if you enjoy the sport, if you enjoy opening up cards, I'm going to start sharing some of my more cool stuff. I'm kind of reluctant to do it. I don't really like to talk about what I got, what I'm about. You know, I that's my business. I really don't share, you know, I don't share people. I don't have a single selfie on the internet. I'm not like hideously ugly, but I ain't, you know, putting my mug on my Facebook or my Instagram. That's not something important to me. I've come from the generation I was like more about what I do, not who I am and what I look like. I don't really care about that. You know, as a kid, we didn't take a lot of self-portraits, you know. When you graduated middle school, high school, college, that was it. That's when you took pictures, you know. That's about it. You didn't take pictures because it was Monday and you had a cool hat, or you made something on the stove and then you take a picture, a series of pictures. I'm not trying to like clown on people with selfies, but you know, I'm old school dude. I just don't do it. I don't have any selfies, and I think I would enjoy the idea that I go to my grave without a single selfie on the internet. There's enough trash on the internet. I don't need to like plug it up with all my junk. You know, it's not that important to me. There we go. Getting down to the bottom of the barrel, folks. Here we go. Last 2 packs. So anyway, if you like this kind of stuff, you like cool stuff, you like people appreciate what they're opening, I'm just enjoying the process. And if you all want to come along and see stuff, please join me. I love this stuff. That's how I grew up, you know. George Brett was great because he was George Brett. He didn't have to autograph it. It doesn't have to have a swatch with his jersey. It doesn't have to have a piece of his bat. It doesn't have to have the knob of his bat. He's George Brett. That's good enough for me. I'm all right with that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like, when it comes to hockey, I got all sorts of autograph stuff, but rookie cards. But with baseball, that was when I was a young kid and grew up in the 80s and 90s, so this is kind of how we rolled. Right on, man. Look at that. Ooh, the redundancy is real. Here, let's go through it a little bit. Let's see. These are all the Hall of Famers and stars. We got Brett, Dawson, Bonds, Clemens, Clemens, Drabek, Bonds, Sutcliffe, Morris, Henderson, Brett, Gwynn, Henderson, Brett, Gwynn, Morris, Brett, Henderson, Raines, Morris, Franco, Hershiser, Dawson, Gwynn, Dawson, Morris, Whitaker, and Saberhagen, because why not? So that's how it kind of adds up. You get a little bit of everything, but you get a lot of the same stuff. So, you know, not bad. You know, these will go into the PC, as the kids say. For all you unhipsters out there, that's personal collection. So, yeah, won't you join me in future installments of Boomer Baseball, where we open up such amazing artifacts as Topps Big second series to go with the first and the third that we've already opened. So if you like this kind of witty commentary and this, you know, just watching what you could possibly open, or just avoiding buying something that costs, I think this costs $23 on eBay shipped. And if you've been into baseball cards for a while, you probably remember a time when these were at like card shows for like $7. I mean, I used to walk past these all day long and go, "Oh, I remember that trash." You remember those things? Remember when you couldn't get a sleeve big enough to hold them because they're the size of a 1953 Topps card? Back in the day, they didn't have like nine pages. They didn't have one touches. They didn't have top loaders that would match this stuff. So when you were a kid, you got this. You got these because they were. Hey, it's Topps. It must be good. It's baseball. And then you realized you couldn't store it. So it was kind of a like, wow. And then nobody took it serious, you know. But nowadays with inflation, you know, I don't know if it's that the Topps product is worth more nowadays. I don't think it's any more collectible. I think the pop counts are low. I think PSA pop counts on some of these Hall of Famers and steroid era stars are a bit low. And that's because I think of this high gloss. It's got like a super duper high gloss on it. So, and the centering can be a problem, plus the size of the card, the way they packaged it, the corners get bumped. But yeah, with inflation and everything else going the way it is, $23 a box. So I think I've spent about $60 to open up all three sets. And you know what? It is what it is. You know, like pre-pandemic, you could have bought like a 1986 Donruss box for that. You could have bought like a, you know, maybe even a baseball card exchange like verified box for that, you know. But nowadays, like the prices of everything are ridiculous. So thank you for joining me, though. Another Blue Glove special. Have a good one.